Here's a good question. What are some top books, Islamic or otherwise, that have had a deep impact on you both?
What would you say? I think I'm interested to hear what you would say about that.
Well, I mean, in terms of non-Muslim books, I'd say The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn, because it really attacks the intellectual basis of science as the end-all, be-all of knowledge. So this is something that Muslims really need, is to take science out of the pedestal that it's been placed on. Is there an echo, by the way, brother?
No.
I hear some echo on my side. But yeah, so it's Structure of Scientific Revolutions, I'd say. But in terms of Islamic studies, like the Al-Arba'in of Imam Nawawi, like just in terms of spiritual impact of the Sunnah directly and going like through a sharh of it with a scholar, that experience that I've had was very impactful just on the spiritual level for me Islamically. But other books that are very influential, I think, for my work, Dar at-Ta'arud of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, just understanding, this conflict between aql and naql, reason and revelation. And that really contextualizes our conflict with liberalism and scientism, materialism, atheism. I think the approaches of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah to that conflict is 100%, 110% relevant to how we are battling these claims to reason coming from the atheists, the scientists, and the liberals, that they say that we have reason and we are the rational ones. It is Muslims or it is believers who are irrational. Those who follow revelation, they're the ones who are irrational. The methodology of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah to flip that and to show that no, this is how we understand reason, and this is how we should understand reason, not this impoverished, misguided understanding of aql that is being imposed on the Muslim community. That is a very, I think, revolutionary approach, and it's a much superior approach to saying, well, no, the liberals and the secularists and the atheists, they do have aql, they do have reason, and we are trying to mold Islam to fit their definitions, mold Islam to fit their understanding or categories about the world and about reason and so forth. I think that has really affected my approach in da'wah and in understanding these issues.
For me, I would, in terms of like what I would do for enjoyment, like read Islamic stuff, is the Arabic stuff is Father Samar Ra'i, and this is funny enough. Nama Ali Khan always mentions this guy.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if you're aware. He's done these books called what do you call it? Lamasat Bayaniyah. He wrote a book called Lamasat Bayaniyah, and he wrote a book called, I think it's called Hijab al-Quran or something like that, or something about I think it's Hijab al-Quran. But Father Samar Ra'i's works in general in the Arabic language are brilliant, because in that he's going into why did Allah choose this word and not this word. Like, for example, let me give you some examples of what he mentions. And you might have heard this from Nauman Ali Khan, because that was the good thing about him at the time. He actually took it from Father Samar Ra'i, but to be fair to him, he would give him credit. So, for example, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُم مِّنْ إِمْلَاقٍ, and وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُم خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُهُم وَإِيَّاكُم, and the other one is نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُم وَإِيَّاهُم. So there's two ayahs in the Quran. Do not kill your children from poverty. Do not kill your children for fear of poverty. One ayah says that we will provide for them and for you. The other one says that we will provide for you and for them. And when it says that for fear of poverty, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُم خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ, do not kill your children for fear of poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that we will provide for you and them. But when it's for min imlaq, we'll provide for them and you. So it's basically prioritizing the issue based on need. And this is so delicate. And if you just read the Quran like quickly, you will not appreciate that. But what Fadl Samar Ra'i is doing, like, let me give you another example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. That if my slave asks me about me, then I am near and I answer the caller of the call. I answer the call of the caller when he calls. Usually in the Quran, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ قُلْ هُوَ مواقيت للناس والحج, or يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر. They ask you about this. They ask you about that. قل يسألونك عن ذي القرنين. They ask you about ذو القرنين. قل سأتلو عليكم, and I will tell you about this. And يسألونك عن الروح. قل, it's always saying. Yeah. Here it says وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب. If my slave asks me about me, I am near. I answer the call of the caller when he calls. There's no قل there. There's no say. Why? Because Allah is making it closer. Because He's trying to project to us the denotation of closeness is being shown in the proximity of the words. So Father Samar Ra'i is an expert, one of the top experts, one of the biggest grammarians of the modern age. Okay, and he is, I would say, one of the greatest guys who have done this in the modern age. Obviously, there's two tafsirs. Tahir ibn Ashur's tafsir is very good like that when it comes to language, Lamasat Bayaniyah and stuff like this. And less popularly, obviously, as Zamakhshari wrote Kashaf, who's a Mu'tazili. But don't read that one because you might fall into bid'ah. But anyway, these are all very powerful, because I think if one delves into the linguistic miracle of the Quran, it will fill you up in terms of convincing you that Islam is the truth. For me, it really did, and that was really powerful. I think Nauman Ali Khan is the best guy to have translated this stuff into English, to be honest with you. A lot of the stuff that you might have seen from his divine speech theories, and even his thing of Ayat al-Kursi, very famous video, he's talking about the structure of Ayat al-Kursi and stuff like that. It comes from Fadl Samar Ra'i. It's actually taken from him. So Fadl Samar Ra'i is the member. He is the reservoir. So in Arabic, I would definitely recommend. In English, there's a book called Road to Mecca, who I was reading recently. It's very powerful. Mohammed As'ad. or I don't know if it's Asad or Asad, but he
Asad.
wrote to Mecca, and the way he was talking, because my friend recommended it to me, I started reading it. He's a translator of the Quran, very beautiful book, very good book. He writes, it's an English book, and he's talking about his journey, and he converted to Islam, and he starts talking. It's a social commentary. I think you would like it if you haven't read it already. I think it's so relevant to today. It's crazy. It's like he's talking today, yani. And in terms of what you say, Islamic. So
he had some deviated views, by the way. Like,
did he? Yeah, I'm sure
it came out in his translation of the Quran.
Really, yeah?
Yeah.
But the book was good. I mean, it's yani. In terms of to be honest, non-Muslim ones, I wrote of Mice and Men when I was younger. When I was in school, it actually had an impact on me because I was thinking, oh, this major plans of John Steinbeck of Mice and Men often go awry, and this idea of the American dream, all that stuff, like social commentary, which is very applicable to us today. We learned it at school basically in England. But it's I think it's a small little book, and it's a good social commentary of Mice and Men. So that's probably something. And you know, Shakespeare stuff. As I've grown older, I've started to get more and more of an appreciation of Shakespeare. Like, I don't know, it's this Doki aspect I'm starting to generate a little bit, but I swear it's like, you know, the guy's serious, you know, like some of his lines and stuff like that, even going back to Othello and Romeo and Juliet, it's very, very powerful, and most of his stuff ends in tragedy and stuff like that. I think if you want to have a real taste of, you know, good English literature, then Shakespeare's the guy, man, to be honest. He's good, to be fair. So these are the stuff I would, you know, recommend. Do
you have any kind of books that you're reading, because you're in a program, like a graduate program right now, right?
Yeah, but all that stuff I'm reading now is like I'm doing like reading a lot. For example, in the first year I spent the whole year doing reading Islamic stuff. Basically, I'm going to start reading this other modal logic and this kind of later, but I've been reading a lot of Ibn Taymiyyah, a lot of his stuff, like the stuff you mentioned, we're translating a book, Sharh al-Isfahaniyya, translating that's about 250 pages. I've done a lot of Ibn Taymiyyah stuff, but if you're not interested in systematic theology, you're not really going to be interested in that stuff. You know, me and you will be interested in it because it's in to do with our day-to-day life. But if you're not interested in that stuff, you might not be interested. But in terms of what people are interested in, they're interested in stories. You know, and a book that I haven't read yet, which I want to read, is Abu Hassan al-Nadwi's book about what do you call it? Why Islam? ماذا خسر العالم من what do you call it? What's it called? I forget the name of it. Why did the world lose out from the thing of Islam? It's like the decline of Islam, basically. Why? He's doing social commentary. I think a lot of his books have been translated. Abu Hassan Nadwi. Yep. A book that I read with one sheikh before, which I actually liked. It's controversial, but I'm going to mention it to this guy. But it's basically, there's a guy called Ad-Dahlawi. Yeah, it's a famous scholar, Indian, and he wrote a book called Hujjatullah al-Baligha. And I went through it with Sheikh Akram Nadwi a long time ago, and it was fantastic. It had these. I know he's got his own problem. I used to be a student like maybe 5 months ago. 5 years.
5 months. Okay.
5 years. Sorry, 5 years. Maybe 6 years.
Just last week.
No, I started with him for like 2 years, you know. But anyway, this was one book we went through, and I liked it. I enjoyed. I got that book, and it's fantastic. This guy Dahlawi, what do you call it? I think he's so underrated, especially for Arabs. They don't know about the Indian guys, like Abu Hassan Nadwi, what do you call it, Dahlawi, and these guys. It's very nice, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of those big ulama. They're from Darul Uloom, either Darul Uloom, Deoband, or affiliated madaris. But Abu Hassan Nadwi, he's a giant, mashallah.
I think he started up Medina University. You know, he helped start up the University of Medina. I don't know if that's true or not, but
he helped start it. He might have been involved, And Shah Wali Allah, as you mentioned, at Dehnawi, he was giant, mashallah. So their contribution.
In many ways, I think these guys are big scholars. I don't think the Arab world has produced things like scholars like that. Like
in modern times, I mean, that's a big
in the last 100 years, like.
Yeah, but they were a lot of them were in Medina and Mecca, and they were teaching hadith in Nasha Nabawi and things like this. So, but their works, as far as the Western Muslims who are learning Arabic and they're trying to access the works of the great ulama, they shouldn't overlook. I think that's what you're saying. They shouldn't overlook the giants like Abu Hassan Nadwi and
of course,
Shawi, all of them. So, mashallah.